Hello everyone, what is up? It is me, Ewan from What Culture Comics today, joined by Zoe.
Still Zoe.
Because it's Thursday, and that means that Wednesday was the day before, and of course, what happens on Wednesday?
We get comics.
Comics, yes, and it was actually quite a small week for me this week. I only picked up both Daredevil and Lois Lane, but I have to talk about Daredevil because, oh boy, not only is this cover by Julian Tedesco just the most chef's kiss kind of thing ever, the actual story itself continues to be amazing, and I don't know about you, Zoe, but I think people are sleeping on this comic because they just expect Daredevil to be great, and that's fair enough because, you know, Daredevil isn't short of runs. You know, he had Miller and Bendis, Miller back in the day with Mazzucchelli, you had Bendis with Alex Maleev, you had Ed Brubaker and Michael Lark, you had Mark Waid and Chris Samnee, and you had Charles Soule, and now we have Chip Zdarsky and Marco Cicchetto, and everyone I feel is just kind of like, oh yeah, Daredevil in it.
I think it's that, and that everyone's like, well, Chip's just good. He's just good, isn't
Chip
he?
is great. Do you read his newsletter? It's wonderful. You should all go read Chip Zdarsky's newsletter. But yeah, basically in this issue, we kind of get more follow-up to what happened in the previous issue with Detective North and Daredevil having an armistice of sorts. We won't go into too many heavy spoilers because I want to encourage everyone who's not reading this comic to actually go and pick it up. But so yeah, that kind of happens, and there's more stuff with the fallout surrounding Kingpin. If you recall a few weeks ago, we kind of mentioned that amazing moment where Fisk just basically loses his cool and pummels a guy into squishy paste in a bathtub.
Or loses like every ounce of stability.
Yeah, he literally loses everything. But yeah, so we have a really great scene in this diner. Obviously, you can tell by the cover, you know, they actually go meet in a diner. And it's all about North and Daredevil kind of basically being like, why are we doing this? And Detective North kind of like shares an anecdote that he had. It was kind of like, it reminded me of Die Hard when, you know, when he's like, I shot a kid. It was kind of like that. And he talks about how when he was back in Chicago, he chased a drug dealer down and then went around the corner and he saw a guy fumbling in the shadows and he was actually reaching for his phone, but he still shot him, and he went through a whole thing going through there. And Daredevil quite rightly points out, it's like, well, if you weren't a cop, you would have gone to jail, and that's kind of a thing. And there's a really great dialogue here about, you know, power dynamics and how the police, it changes when you're an officer and whether or not that is just or not. And there's a running theme throughout this comic about justice and about, you know, orders and whether it's right to follow orders and how you shouldn't always just obey orders because you should know they're the wrong thing. And there's a great moment here where North turns a corner and after, you know, the crooked police chief has told people not to go into Hell's Kitchen in the midst of a huge gang war, he basically turns around and arrests two people, which sets up another kind of, it's a great moment, isn't it?
It's sort of this almost Captain America-esque moment where it's like, you can be a figure of justice and not be like, just like, yeah, the government is always good and never wrong. And I do very much like, because I feel like sometimes Daredevil does get a little bit clumsied in like all these romances because Matt gets around.
He does. He does.
And like, oh, he's got his sight back, he's lost his sight, oh, he's got smell. Like, I think
he's got smell.
You don't even know the storyline, so it's like, will he have magical smell? But I really appreciate when it sort of goes back to its roots, and it's like, no, this is what it should be about. This is what it's always been about.
And one thing I love about this comic as well is that Zdarsky doesn't necessarily have Daredevil be this, you know, obviously Daredevil is the whole thing with Marvel is that you have flawed characters, and Daredevil is one of the most flawed guys in existence, and Zdarsky really holds him to account here. There's a bit where he's been having an affair with the wife of a crime boss, and she comes in and she's just like literally holds him to account, and literally, you're trying to keep me away because you want to be loved, you want to have the knowledge that someone is out there, like wanting you, and quite rightly points out that's a really crappy attitude to have, and then Matt's just like, oh yeah, I do have that toxic behavioural trait. That's really bad. And then afterwards he resolves to basically because obviously he's aware that North has done this now, and then the governor is on the phone to the police chief, and he basically has this great moment with Elektra at the end of the story. By the way Marco Cicchetto draws Elektra is like living all the greatness of the old Miller and Sienkiewicz sketches of Elektra from like the 80s and 90s. She looks great in this. I love the design. Basically, he asks Elektra, well, I'm going to change what I'm doing now. I'm sick of just going after bit part drug dealers, crime lords, because it's really a systemic issue that comes from the top. And so he resolves to basically take on the government. He's like, I'm going to go after the governors and the corrupt politicians now. And it's a really great moment because if you think about it, he has a point.
I can't really see how it's going to work though, because aside from the time that he became like the mob boss of Hell's Kitchen.
Which was really good.
It was very good. But I can't see how he'll do it, like, on a political sense. He can't just be like, and now I'm the president.
Well, I mean, to be fair, in Charles Soule's run, he did do because Soule has loads of legal experience. So there's that great arc where he kind of introduces a bill to try and let superheroes testify without, disclosing their secret identity, which is great. And I feel as though this is moving along a similar lines, but in the sense of, this is classic Daredevil, and instead of just, reacting, he's going to be proactive. And I think that's very interesting. I'm here for Daredevil taking on corrupt politicians and cops. So yeah, Daredevil is great.
Speaking of corrupt things, Batman is currently a mixed one. I've said to you a couple times, like, I really enjoy it. I really enjoy what Tom King is doing, but also there are these issues that feel very much like filler. Anyone who saw what I'm going to describe as the Beach comic knows exactly what I'm on about. This is interesting because we've just had Batman 84, I believe.
Not 74 like Tom King said.
Not 74. We're very close to the end, and a lot of fans have complained. I had a moment where it did feel very much like the issue was filler, but a theory has come out that means it might be one of the most important issues for this entire storyline.
Go on.
So essentially, we've seen the stuff with Thomas Wayne, and so the whole time we presume, oh, this is Thomas Wayne, he's Batman, so he must be the one from Flashpoint. He has, all the same stuff. He's like, oh, Bruce, I know that you're also Batman, so we just presumed. But there's a series of flashbacks in this issue where essentially we see a lot of the scenes that previously happened, but they have completely different dialogue. And now it's a mixed one, because when I read through it, I was like, oh, they've just changed the dialogue. That's interesting and kind of annoying. But the theory goes that essentially this changed dialogue means that it's not the same Thomas Wayne. Which would make perfect sense.
I'm not even reading this and my mind is blown. That's because, the whole thing with it obviously goes back to the button, but if I recall in the button, Thomas Wayne is meant to die and that he gets the Flashpoint universe gets destroyed at the end of the button, if I recall correctly. So the fact that he came back, everyone was kind of a little bit confused anyway. So it's someone pretending to be the Flashpoint Thomas Wayne?
So it's a mixed one. It's either that it's from a different universe that's only slightly varied, because in the flashbacks we see characters have similar outfits, they're doing similar jobs, but it's not the exact same. Say the Penguin works for Thomas Wayne in the Flashpoint universe, but in the flashbacks we see he kills the Penguin. And while it could all work in the same universe, I think it works much, much better if it's a slight variant. Just a slight variant.
That would explain so much. I mean, it made it. Everyone's been kind of confused why Thomas Wayne has it in so hard for Bruce after pretty much having those emotional moments in both Flashpoint and the button. So I think that makes sense if it's an alternate universe. That's a pretty interesting twist if it's like Earth. I don't know what Earth Flashpoint was, but like Earth F.2 or something like that, and you have that whole, you thought I was the Flashpoint Batman, but really he's my distant universe's cousin's roommate, and you do it that way.
It's just the element of like, oh, you thought you knew what was going on? Well, we didn't confirm it, so looks like you were wrong, slightly different.
Yeah, so Tom King ends Batman this month, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So that's
I have no idea how it's going to go.
I'm looking forward to reading that in one big tradey sum, because even though I loved Mr. Miracle reading it in issues, I did think it read much better in one solid trade format. And a lot of writers these days write for trade, and I feel as though with the amount of filler, I can imagine that's like a thing that will probably read better in a collection.
Otherwise, it's being handed a single M&M a day, essentially.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, moving on to our next story now, and our final story, and we've got some really great news for fans of Gail Simone, because she's such a great writer. I love her tweets. They're great. They're just a great Twitter game. But she's actually coming back to DC next year. Obviously, she's been doing some stuff at Marvel recently. She's been doing Iron Man, a few Deadpool things here and there. But now she's actually coming back, and she's not just coming back, she's actually going to be writing a story for Birds of Prey Giant #1, and also an issue in the Wonder Woman number 750, which will be drawn by Colleen Durant. So that's like really, really cool as well.
You'd love to see it, quite simply.
That Wonder Woman anthology also has a story from Greg Rucka and Nicola Scott, so I'm very, very excited. But yeah, Gail Simone back on Birds of Prey. It's like I'm back during the golden age of Simone's DC, where we had that. We had Secret Six as well, which is obviously incredible. I love Secret Six so much. So the fact that she's coming back to do Birds of Prey next year is really, really cool. I'll read the synopsis very quickly for you now. It's when a new hospital collapses into a sinkhole in the middle of Gotham City, Harley Quinn tries to convince Huntress and Black Canary to investigate. But can the Birds of Prey really trust the clown princess of crime? Or do Harley's true allegiances lie elsewhere? How do you feel about Harley Quinn being a Birds of Prey? A member of the BOP?
I kind of enjoy it and I kind of don't. I think because Gail Simone has done such a decent job with Deadpool, like, it will transfer very, very well to Harley Quinn, who is essentially like a female clown version of him for DC
in
at this
recent
point.
years, definitely, yeah.
So I think tonally it'll work quite well. I hope she isn't just the comic relief, because I do feel like often in Suicide Squad and stuff, it's like, there's Harley, isn't she so silly and messed up? And it's like,
we're bad guys, it's what we do. I can't do a Harley voice, it's really bad. I can't do it, I'm not doing it again.
It's peak.
Never again. But yeah, I'm really excited for the story. I think it's kind of a little bit annoying that DC have to, I mean, I'm really excited for the Birds of Prey movie, I should clarify, but maybe I would like the more traditional Birds of Prey back in the comics, whatever. I think if this is going to be a great jumping on point, because obviously the film comes out in February, so if people are looking forward to that film then see this comic and think, oh gee, there's Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, I will go pick this up, then more power to DC, because more people reading comics is what it's all about.
Well, I think it works the other way around too. I think if we read through this comic and, you know, fingers crossed, it's enjoyable, then when the film comes out, it won't feel as jarring to be like, and there's Harley Quinn, she's just here now, hanging out as the main character in the film.
But yeah, please let us know what you thought of this week's releases down in the comments below. Please let me know what you read, because I'm curious and I didn't have a big pull list this week, so I'm sure there's definitely loads of stuff that I've missed. But yeah, please also spread the word about the channel. We're nearly at 500,000 subscribers, and we've got some really cool stuff planned, so yeah, please do that. You can like, share, and subscribe, obviously, and hit the notification bell, which really does help us out as well. Please head back on over to whatculture.com/comics for more news lists and articles like this every day. You can follow me on Twitter at Ewan Ruins Things. You can follow Zoe on Twitter at, well, she never tweets.
Well, Zimmer Scale, maybe I'll tweet out of spite now.
Maybe she will.
Maybe not.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.